This is enjoying the money that you make. This is what you all should be doing. The thrill of being able to do this and drive like a motherfucker, like a fucking idiot. I'll tell you what I'm going to do now. I'm actually going to break you down my whole journey from being in high ticket sales, from the start to the fucking finish, what it actually takes to win in this game. I'm going to give you a raw, real experience of what it takes to actually make money in high ticket sales and what a truthful experience is actually like. Everything that you hear or everything that you listen to today is exactly the process and the journey that I genuinely went through. And some of you guys probably think you have the right mentality to win in sales. I'm going to break it down exactly why you don't and what needs to happen so you can actually make the money you want to. It's not as sexy as you think, but one thing that's really important is it worthwhile. Yes, you fool. Let me explain. You may have heard this story before. I made a previous video kind of running through a couple of things, but I'm going to put a little bit more weight to this one. And the ups, the downs, the uglies, the sexies of making money in this game. Now, I don't come from a special background. It's pretty obvious. I'm just your regular guy that was in a 9-to-5 struggling, overworking himself or being underpaid. That's probably a reality that most of you have experienced or are experiencing. Now, you may be in the start of your journey just figuring out what the hell high ticket sales is or what remote sales is, whatever you want to call it. You may be in a process of your first mentorship, you may be in a process of going through YouTube, or you may be, in your first couple of months in the game, or you may be experienced in sales so far. Whichever kind of avenue you're at, whichever kind of time you're in your experience now, this will give you some insights, whichever part of that journey you're in, to actually understand and make those mentality shifts. So, like you've probably heard before, I had no experience to sales. Previously, I was working a job as an engineer, and I was working 70 hours every single week. I wasn't supposed to work 70 hours, but I knew that if I was to overwork myself, I did 70 hours a week. The bare minimum was 40 hours. But I knew I would get paid time and a half if I was to overwork the 40 hours. So what did I do? I worked every single day to make the most of the money I could. Now, I was working 14-hour shifts. When I was doing this, I was working 14 hours every single day. And at the end of the day, at the end of the month, all I was left with was £2,700 for 70 hours a week. At the time, I was convincing myself that was good money because it was more money than most other people were making. It was more money than most of my parents were making. Now, at the time, that was probably my own roadblock, because the more I convinced myself that I was making good money, despite overworking myself, the more I delayed taking the step that I was trying to take. And that's probably what a lot of people are experiencing. Even if you're in sales, you have a current offer and you've been there for a while and you're making maybe 10, 12 grand a month, and you think the more you convince yourself that scenario is you're doing okay, the actual success you can achieve. So that's one thing that's really dangerous. The more you convince yourself of things are doing okay, the worse things get delayed, the longer things get delayed. So that's one main bottleneck that I faced in the beginning of my journey. Stop delaying things because you keep convincing yourself everything is okay, because that is a very dangerous position to be in. And because I'm self-aware enough now to realize when I portray that behavior, I know exactly when to change it. So the common turning point, which is what happens with most people, you keep your hand on the hot stove long enough, you'll eventually get too hot where you have to remove your hand and take some level of action. So that's exactly what I did. So at that point, what happened then is I found Luke Alexander on Twitter. I was on Money Twitter for a while, so that kind of mentality of making money online, what a lot of people, if you weren't on Money Twitter like 2 years ago, it was a really powerful place to be because you're a product of your environment. So if your environment is only a circle of people that are in 9-to-5s and they're going out every weekend and just repeating the same patterns over and over, your mind becomes very limited to that's just the way life is. Whereas if you become aware and you start following different people and people that are making money, your mind starts to open to new realities and what you can accomplish. So the moment I found Money Twitter, I was literally engraved, like I was obsessed with it. I would follow different people. I would look at what other people are doing, trying to figure out how these guys are doing it. And then eventually I came across a guy called Luke Alexander. Now, most of you people may know who Luke is. He ran a program called Close a Cartel. He was constantly posting about booking calls with his team and all this kind of stuff and the investment. He was pretty open about the investment. Now, I I was well aware of what the investment was, so he created some level of scarcity in me, which was probably did me a lot of favors, Luke, if you end up watching this. Maybe not, but like if you end up watching this, that probably did me a lot of favors, knowing that the investment was on the table and you created some urgency to increase it. So he basically increased the investment to $6,000. Did I have $6,000? No. I did not have $6,000. So what did I do? I believe I had around 500. I had like maybe £1,000 in savings. I was pretty silly with some of my money, and then it come to a point where I was just ringing loan companies. Now you probably heard this time and time again. This is really powerful because this is the difference between people that actually want to make it and the people that don't. Is their resourcefulness to the situation, because you can either focus on what you can't do or what you can do. So in that situation, basically what I did is I rang a loan company. In fact, I rang 20 total loan companies. 19 out of those loan companies denied me for a loan. Why? Because my credit was shit and I didn't really bring in enough income and I didn't have that much money saved. So they denied me again and again and again. So eventually I decided, you know what, I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to tell them that I'm getting this loan for a home improvement for my mum and see what happens. And then on the 20th try, they actually approved me for a loan, and I was like, thank fuck. Once I got approved for that loan, what happened then is I jumped on a call with a guy called Nehemiah. Now, Nehemiah, I jumped on the call. I was probably the worst prospect ever. I actually didn't turn my camera on because I wasn't really aware. I'm pretty sure I was open to the questions. I didn't have the money on me then. I knew I was getting the money. I didn't have the money on me. Didn't have my camera on. Was taking notes, and eventually, because I didn't have the money, Nehemiah asked me for a deposit. I paid the deposit. Why? Because I genuinely had good intentions to actually commit to this and change my life. So I paid the deposit. I eventually got the money transferred into my account. Even in that moment, knowing that I was still so intentful and committed to actually making this work, when I received the money, all these hypothetical situations of what would happen, worst case scenario, was still playing around in my mind. The difference is I still had a bigger internal drive to overcome that fear. So then I eventually remember texting Nehemiah and being like, hey dude, look, like I've got the money, I'm ready to go. Once I made that investment, it was like a weight off my shoulders. Like I genuinely felt good. It was like a burden that I've been holding on to for so long. When people kind of make the idea of like low ticket groups are good, I personally don't invest in low ticket groups. I don't think they're good at all. One, you're probably surrounded by low level people, because why would you make a low level investment? Two, a bigger investment drives some urgency for you to actually act on the thing that's in front of you. If you make $100, $200 investment a month, how much urgency is in that conversation? There's not. How much urgency is in you actually putting the work in and actually going for it? How much commitment does the person have to actually help you have the success you want? Not really. So yes, I think significant size investments are really powerful, and they do you so many favors. The more money you put out there, the more money becomes attracted to you. And that's something, that mindset, that mentality is something that served me very, very well. So back to the investment. Once I made the investment, I finished up a 12-hour shift. I finished 2 hours earlier because I was so fucking excited to just get to it. I remember opening the course on my phone. I remember going through it. I remember opening a notebook and just writing shitloads of notes for like 2 hours straight. Woke up the next day, felt good about what I'd done, and then just carried on going through the notes, listening while I was at work, listening to the coaching sessions, trying to digest all the information. Just basically, what's the word? I don't want to say inject. I suppose let's just say inject. I was trying to inject as much information as I could. So that's another thing as well, when people use time as an excuse. Motherfucker, I was working 14 hours a day and I still made this work. So you can't give any excuse that prospects tell me, like, I know that I've been through much worse than you and still made it work. So your excuses are nothing compared to mine. So I was working 14-hour shifts, I was going through the content, I was doing role plays. I remember doing role plays on the phone. I wouldn't turn my camera on, I was a little bit shy. And then eventually I got out of my own limitations with that and started getting on camera. And then I remember doing role plays over and over and over and over again. And then after about 2 weeks into the program, I got fired from my job. My back was against the wall, so my only option was to make the most out of this, like fully, genuinely commit the most I could do every single day. And I still have pictures here. And then I was running low on savings, and then I still had to make that loan work. I still had to make the payments for that loan. Like, I was in a very urgent, desperate situation because I had no other choice but to make this work. So most people, now that I didn't have the help that some of you guys have now to be able to land roles. I had literally had to do anything I could just to get my first role. I remember making Facebook posts, and then it was coming up to my birthday, and I promised myself, I have to land a role before my birthday. I have to. So then I remember reaching out to, filling my name with Facebook groups, doing everything I could. And then eventually I got my first opportunity. And I just said to the guy, look, this was a white lie. So I basically said to him, like, look, I've never done high ticket sales before, but what I have done is I ran my own fitness coaching program. So I was sick and tired of fulfilling for these clients and only returning like maybe 150 back per client. So I've taken sales calls before, but I've never done it in this industry. Cool, I'll give you a shot, I'll give you an opportunity. I'm sick and tired of poor thinking closers that just aren't willing to put the graft in. As soon as I got the opportunity, I'll show you here, like this picture here. So this is me up at 1:30 a.m. doing everything I could to make sure I digest every bit of product knowledge, everything I can in terms of objection handling, everything I can in terms of discovery, just digesting everything to make sure that when I take my first call, I perform. And what do you know, like my first ever closing call, I actually performed and I closed the deal. 5k deal, 5k pay in full. That was for an Amazon FBA offer with, who's funnily enough, come full circle, is Pedro, that's actually in my group now. So shout out to Pedro for actually giving me the opportunity, because I genuinely wouldn't be here today if you hadn't given me the opportunity. And then I closed a couple of deals on that offer. I was doing pretty well. I was probably making like 4 or 5k a month on that offer. That might not sound like a lot of money, but to me it was more money than I'd ever made in my life before. Then eventually, as things kind of do, the market changes, and that offer started to take a little bit of a slide, a little bit of a decrease, and I didn't have much opportunity or much volume, and I was a little bit lost, and I was running low on money at that point. So this was maybe about 2 months in, and I was running low on money, or I think the third month in I was running low on money. By that point, I was in a pretty rough situation, like mentally, just doubting myself, self-sabotaging, and I was very unsure on how I was going to make this work. Like I had like £2,000 left in my name, and then I didn't have any calls for like 3-4 weeks straight, and I wasn't bringing any more money in. I remember having a conversation with Sean Ray, so shout out to Sean Ray. Maybe you guys know who Sean Ray is. Sean Ray sat me down for an hour. Now bear in mind, Sean Ray did not have to do this for whatever reason. He sat me down for a full hour straight and just poured into me, like poured confidence into me, a lot of time into me to make me believe in myself and show me, like I remember him saying, like, look at some of these guys, they're making 10 grand a month, they're traveling Bali, like you can do all of this, you have the confidence, you have the work ethic, you just need to get out there and do it. You need to stop getting in your own way. And I remember having that conversation with Sean Ray. In my mind, like just so much self-doubt and sabotage and just going around in circles in my own space thinking I've got no money, Sean, I don't know what to do. And because of that confidence, he made me realise I can actually strive for more. Now in between that conversation with Sean, I remember applying for a 9-to-5 role in sales. Didn't even have any sales experience aside from this. I remember applying for that sales role. It was in like a call centre in Manchester. I went into the interview, was way out of my depth, literally just so lost, just acting out of desperation. And I remember a couple of days after the interview, they actually denied me. They say, hey, we're not looking to move forward with this right now. Wish you all the best. That was a massive kick in the teeth for me. Like even more self-sabotage started to creep in, and I was really fucking lost. Now the difference is I actually had nobody there alongside me to kind of guide me through this, aside from Sean. Like I actually had nobody as a friend to help me guide me through this, or nobody that's actually been through this before. Whereas a lot of you guys now, like you network and you have close friends in the space and all these online friends. I had none of that, so I was very, very lost and just having conversations with myself that were going nowhere and they're leading to a bad direction. So again, out of desperation and out of pure delusional confidence, I still continue to believe in me, in who I am and what I can do. So then what happened is, a lot of you guys might know him, Caden Giara. So I was super bought into Caden. I remember, because he was in Closer Cartel, I remember watching all these coaching calls and thinking, this guy, I need to invest in this guy's got the skills, he's going to help me. So I remember sending Caden Giara my last dollar. Funnily enough, Trey, if you know Trey and Caden, they were running that together. Trey actually objection handled the shit out of me, and thank you for doing that, Trey, because you got me out my own way, and I wouldn't have the opportunity that I did if it wasn't for you objection handling me. So shout out for Trey. That's why objection handling is so important. That's why I do it so much, and I believe in it so much, because it genuinely, people want to do things, they just very fearful of doing things. So Trey objection handled the shit out of me. I paid a down payment again because I just didn't have the money ready. So I waited for my commissions, and then obviously I paid Caden and Trey. The minute I got into Caden and Trey's, I literally went through the full programming the first day, through the full thing. Because the offer was still slipping, I didn't have a genuine offer. I remember the Caden's whole selling point was, we'll get you on offers. For whatever reason, Caden did not have to get me on an offer. I remember seeing Tooza's offer. So it was, I remember him seeing make a post, a job opportunity for Tooza's offer. Said, Caden, can you get me on this, please? I promise you I'll do you proud. He didn't have to believe in me. But I believed in me, so I sold him on me actually doing everything that I would promise him to do. So Caden got me on that offer. Probably one of the favorite offers that I've worked with. The culture was great, and the people that I worked with there, they're good friends now. I've built really good friends, really close people that mean a lot to me now, just from being in there. So shout out to Zach, shout out to Brendan, both our boys. But genuinely, like that was a life-changing offer for me. So I still didn't have the best skill set, but what I did have is a delusional self-confidence, an obsession, and just a drive to make sure that I actually go on there and make the money I want to. And then, or maybe a month into that, I'd made my first $10,000. Zach still remembers the first ever closing call I took for that offer. It's actually pretty hilarious because most of you guys say, oh, what do I need to do to objection handling? I need to get objection handling skills. I didn't have objection handling skills. I just had literal belief, like there's something better for this prospect. He just needs to get out of his own way. I remember I was sat on a call with a guy for like 3 hours straight. Literally, he was driving a car, worst prospect ever. I objection handled the crap out of him for $2,000. I just would not let this kid go. Objection handling doesn't come down to skills. A lot of the time it comes down to conviction. I mean, saying the right things is obviously is better, but it's just like, if you have the conviction that there is a better way for this person and you're not willing to let this person go because you actually give a shit, that will make the biggest difference in your objection handling. All the difference. It's just pure conviction. Obviously, I made my first $10,000 a month. From there, I was literally just working non-stop, like 10, 12-hour days. I was doing everything, just slinging $1 to $2 to $3 to $500 deals, whatever I could sling. That's the difference. A lot of you guys make excuses. Oh, I don't want to sling this low ticket. Well, that's how you get experience. Slinging 1 to 2K deals. That's how you get experience, and that's how you get good. Because the same objections or the same problems you'll get at 6, 10, 15K, they're still the same problems that you'll get at 1 to 2K. They're still the same beliefs and the same issues and the same objections. The only difference is with 1 to 2K deals, you can literally just get so much experience and figure out what works and what doesn't work pretty fucking quickly. And then after going through that, just working like a workhorse, then I found Bill Walsh. Now, Bill Walsh changed a lot for me. Bill Walsh is really, really good for me, and Bill Walsh is a good starting point for a lot of people, or a good decision for a lot of people. The one thing that I took from Bill is confidence. Bill just pretty much poured confidence into me, and I think that's what a lot of people need. Sometimes you just need that confidence to instill that belief that you can do it. When I've officially enrolled into Bill Walsh, I remember being on vacation here. I was in Tenerife, and I remember it didn't matter that I was on vacation. I said to him, look, I've got the money I'm going to spend. I'm going to send you the money now. I'm going on vacation. Can I start when I come back? Easy. I remember taking the onboarding call whilst I was on holiday. I was so fucking excited, just because that's how obsessed with getting better I was. I was so obsessed with being the best and getting better. Like, I was actually excited to go through the content, learn the skills, and actually be around Bill Walsh. Like, I was so fucking excited. And that's the difference. Like, can you see the obsession? Like, even the way I speak about now, there's pure passion in me learning the skills so I can become better and make the money that I want to. It's a difference. I actually have passion behind getting better. Some of you guys just want to get better to make the money. I genuinely have a passion. I don't have no passion for sales, but I have a passion for being the best at it. I've said this before, so I come from quite a competitive background in terms of I used to play Call of Duty competitively. Then I got into the gym and I literally just wanted to be shredded all the time. So like, that in itself is an obsession and a competitive mindset to actually perform, to actually being the best you can be. Just wanting to make more commissions, that's not going to suffice. That won't suffice you being the best and actually making the money you want to. It just won't. And then as I went through that journey, Bill allowed me to ramp up to my first 19K month. And then for the next 5 months of that period were absolutely unreal. Like, I was grinding every single day. I remember half my family members thinking, this guy is depressed, like, we just haven't seen me just locked inside of his room and just doing nothing. Everybody thought I was doing nothing. And then I tried telling people, I'm making 20 grand a month. I'm like, I'm not so sure about that, son. That's the thing. You say you want to lock in, but are you locked in enough to the point where all your family members think you're depressed and you're losing your fucking mind? No. So ask yourself, are you actually locking in as hard as you think? You're probably not, motherfucker. And then through November of 2024 and December, I remember that all the DM setters were really good lads. Like, they were UK boys, and I remember staying on Slack with them until like 4 a.m. Literally, we'd be like, I'd be working from like 1 p.m. UK time all the way up until 4 a.m. UK time, and I remember being on Slack with the DM setters, and they'd literally be huddling me live on a group call, and they'd be listening to me closing their deals, which was so cool. That was a really good experience of being on a good offer. I remember going to bed, I was setting alarms for like 3 a.m. in the morning, like, oh, this guy's a laydown, I promise you he's a laydown, he's gonna close, setting an alarm for 3 a.m. and then getting up and taking the call at 3 a.m. and then going straight back to to sleep. Or I'd get up, it'd be like 2 a.m. in the morning, I'd be getting in bed and it'd be like, oh bro, I've got a lead for you, I promise you now, we just got a little bit fair. Fine, get the fuck out of bed, close the deal, go straight back to bed. You think you're committed. You think you've actually got what it takes. You think you've got the mentality of being obsessed and actually becoming a winner. Do you see the difference of the way I speak about my experience and my journey so far? Like how committed I was, staying up until 1 p.m, getting up at 1 p.m, staying up until 4 a.m. just to close deals, 1 to 2K deals. Would half of you people do that? Would you fuck? And then it would be the same cycle over and over and over again. Get up, gym, work. Get up, gym, work. It's not sexy. What did I tell you? It's not sexy. But that's how fast that's what it takes to actually win. That's what it takes to actually be the best. Because at that point, I was top closer back to back to back to back to back. And then all of a sudden, I had an identity crisis. Why? Because I was stuck at $20,000 a month. Some of you people might say, Kurt, $20,000 is a lot of money. Yes, it is. Not for the identity that I had in mind. Because for so long I told myself I'm 100% a $20,000 a month closer before I'd even made it. Once I stepped into that identity, I then started telling myself I'm 100% $30,000, I'm 100% $50,000 a month. So it's like an identity crisis. Then I realised I can't keep doing this if I want to make more money, because slinging 1 to 2K deals, that's a lot of work to be able to make 20 grand a month. How many of you fuckers can make 20 grand a month slinging 1 to 2K deals? Probably not a lot. So then I decided to make a massive leap of faith. I jumped on with a business owner. I was working part-time. I remember doing a discovery on this business owner. I was like, your guys are at $50,000 now. You got 2 closers. I promise you now, I'll go in there and I'll make 250K cash collecting my first month. Confidence, conviction, delusional confidence. So then I was working part-time on both. I was working part-time on Tuesdays and then I was working part-time on MDM. One thing that really shifted for me is I closed a $20,000 deal. That kind of fucked with me. Because when you close a $20,000 deal on an hour, when you make $2,000 in commission, that kind of fucks with you a little bit compared to just slinging 1 to 2K deals. It's like that was a massive shift to the point where I was like, I'm settling for so much less, like I can do so much more. So I was slinging $20,000 deals. I then transitioned full time. Now that's the problem for a lot of you, is you convince yourself that things are going okay and you're not willing to take a leap of uncertainty. But what if that's what you've got to betray to your prospects? So if you're staying comfortable, then how can you challenge your prospects to get uncomfortable? See, that's the difference. I was in a very comfortable position making $20,000 a month. I made a very uncertain leap with a belief in myself to have no idea what I could make. So once I made that jump and I realized I closed my first $20,000 deal, then I had to part ways with the previous offer. That was a tough conversation to have, but I knew it's what was best for where I wanted to go. So I finally made that leap, and like I mentioned before, I promised the business owner I would collect $250,000 in my first month. Here's a screenshot. I collected $260,000 in my first month. Conviction, beliefs, vision, they all work, motherfuckers. All works if you do, if you actually believe it. If you actually believe you're going to take the actions of what are going to suffice the outcome. All works. So then I worked that offer for like 9 months straight. Collected a ton of cash. Eventually, because we were slinging 20K deals so much, we had to increase the price. So it went from 20K to 30K, and then we ended up in 50K. And then I was collecting 50K deals. The highest deal I collected here was $70,000. We had a mixed range of 35 to 50 to 70. But we had to increase the price because I was just slinging too many more fucking deals. Now, by this point, I've been through Bills, I've been through Caden, I've been through Closer Cartel. By this point, I had my own style of closing, where just naturally I was focusing on the fake as quickly as possible. I was focusing on how do we get to these. I was focusing on the limitations pretty early on. So I had my own style of closing. I had my own swing of how to get people out the wrong way, because that's all I really focus on. Like, I don't focus on a sales call. I focus on people's beliefs and what the problems are with themselves to why they're not achieving what they want. That was a big question that I leveraged pretty early on. It was like, why hasn't this happened? Like, you all know that's one of my favorite questions. Once I kind of learned that, it was like I used that in every single call, and it was just my own style of closing at that point, and that's kind of who I am today. Like, I've been through a lot of programs, but I've always had like my own style of closing. I think that's really powerful when you have that as a closer, like who you are as a person and how you portray that into your conversations based on the skills that you've learned so far. Now, at that point, I quickly realized I can take less calls, but make more money. I can pour so much energy into these people, and I have such an advanced skill set now, I can take less calls, make more money. So at that point, I was taking like 3 to 4 calls a day, and I was just pouring into these people. I was giving everything I've got. By the end of the calls, I was fucking drained. In a good way though, because I knew I was actually having really powerful conversations and actually felt good about what I was doing. So at that point, I was doing like 14% commission. I was paid like 14%. Now 14% on 50k deals and 7k deals. It's a good amount of money, and you can make a good amount of money. And then I started making significant jumps in commissions. Went from like 25 to 40 to 50 to 55. And that was a fun experience. I remember doing that in Mexico. And another thing that's really important is to switch up your environment, because if you're in the same kind of cycle over and over, I remember going out to Mexico, that was really fucking good for me. Just locked in my own little penthouse, just grinding away, taking calls. Outside of calls, I was learning, I was investing, I was doing all this stuff. I was making sure that I was advancing and not staying stagnant. Because a lot of you motherfuckers will be like, oh, I've invested in someone before, I don't need to make another investment. Well, are those your limitations or mine? Because I want to be great. I mean, you might want to be good. I actually want to be great. And if I want to be great, then guess what I've got to do? I've got to make further investments. I can't stop at one level and think that's enough. Doesn't work that way. And another reason why I got paid 14% is because do more than you're asked. I think that's something that I've always lived by. Do more than you are asked. So what do I mean by that? So I was doing pre-call content. I was coaching the closers on the team to make sure that we can drive revenue. Little things like that I was doing for free. So before I was even getting paid an increase in comms, I was already doing that for free. Why? Because I wanted to make a significant impact into the company. I wanted to make sure that my name had a lot of respect on it. So I was going out my own way to do more than I was asked. So if you do more than you're asked, then people see value and then they want to do more for you. So that's how I got an increase in commissions. So always remember that. If you're a closer now and you're just doing the bare minimum, just getting by on just your end of days and just taking closing calls and just following up, do more than you're asked and you'll be paid more than you expect. And at that point, I was getting a lot of people asking me what I was doing, and a big vision that I always had is to build my own brand, to build my own personal brand, to have a community of people that want to do more, be better. I always had that vision for myself. So Set the Standards was a really powerful name because it's everything that I align myself with in person. Like, I'm a guy that looks after my health. I invest in health. I invest in mentally. I invest in myself. Financially, I invest in myself. Physically, I invest in myself. I pay for coaching, and I follow a very specific routine every single day because I'm obsessed. I just wanna. My ego plays into my ego. Ego is a good thing. Ego is a good problem to have. Why? Because it drives me to perform better and do better every single day. So when people tell you your ego is a problem, depends how you play into it. So for me, I leverage the shit out of my ego because I want to look the best, I want to be the best, and I want to do the best. As I was taking calls, like 3 to 4 a day, I was slowly building out Set the Standards. And 2 months into that, we finally officially launched Set the Standards. A lot of work, a lot of effort and commitment had gone into this. And that's exactly where we are today. And because of all those experiences, because of all that journey, I'm not saying I'm the best as a coach. What I am saying is I've been through everything that you can imagine as a sales rep so that I can coach you how to make the most of your experiences that you're about to or need to so you can have the success that you want. So it's not about me being the best coach or why you should go with me. What it is about is I've experienced everything and I actually give a shit to help you through those experiences so you can make the money you want to. That's all I want. That's all I give a shit about. Now, if that's enough for you, then that makes sense. But it's also part of the reason why last month of July, we had this leaderboard here. This is something for me that I stand really proud by. There's some really powerful names up there and there's 400k in commissions alone just for July. That makes me proud because something that I envisioned for a long time. So I just wanted to give you a truthful, honest journey of what it actually takes to win in high ticket sales, the ups, the downs, the uglies, the sexies. Does it come with a lot of self-doubt? Yes. Does it come with a lot of fruits on your end? Absolutely. So that's how I've been able to go from zero, as no prior sales experience in my life, to collecting over $55,000 in commissions in the time frame of a year and a half. So I say this time and time again, things can change as fast as you want them to change. And if that doesn't entice you, if that doesn't align with who you are as a person, that's absolutely fine. But I would love to have a community and set the standards of people that actually want to win. They want to be surrounded by winners, and they want to do better, not just for themselves, but for the people most important around them. So it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you watching. Feel free to comment below any takeaways or anything you found helpful or insightful to like your experience or your journey. So to wrap that up, that full journey of the passion, the obsession of what it's actually like to win. If you want to be around winners, if you want to learn the right skills, if you want to be coached by somebody that gives a fuck, if you just want to make more money in sales and you want to have better conversations, then feel free to click the link in the description, and I'll see you on the other side of the table, my good friend. I'm out. Goodbye. Au revoir.